Hello, Sebastian Lucido here, and welcome to Line Upon Line, where we study a book of the Bible verse by verse. We're in the book of Joel. We're going to study verse 15 to 20 and close out the chapter today. Let me read the verses, and then I want to do a little review before we dig into the teaching today. So verse 15 starts out, "Alas, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as destruction from the Almighty. Is not the food cut off before your eyes, joy and gladness from the house of our God? The seed shrivels under the clods, storehouses are in shambles, barns are broken down, for the grains have withered. How the animals groan, the herds of cattle are restless, because they have no pastures. Even the flocks of sheep shall suffer punishment. O Lord, to you I cry out. For fire has devoured the open pastures, a flame has burned up all the trees of the field. The beasts of the field also cry out to you, for the water brooks are dried up, and fire has devoured the open pastures." Amen. And so we see a couple of things going on here. In the first 14 verses, as we studied, I think in session 1, a lot of time, most times, the prophets, all of the prophets, have prophecies pertaining to their own times that also are reflective of the end times. For instance, Daniel had his 70 weeks, which is prophetically for the future, but he also, in that same chapter, chapter 9, he also had 490 years or 70 years of captivity that Israel would go into. So there are parallels. There's parallels between, a prophecy for the contemporary time that also is a prophecy for the end times, and they go back and forth. And we see it in Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel, and so it's the same here in Joel. The first 14 chapters really speaks of waves of judgment that were going to come on the people because of their complacency, their coldness toward the Lord. Their wealth had gotten in the way of their service of the Lord. They had stopped some of the sacramental system, the sacrificial system. And so as a result of it, judgment was coming, and Joel heralded this alarm in 835 BC. This is about, probably about 100 years from Solomon's death. So Israel was still a strong, prosperous nation. But we learned that the 4 plagues, came in, a 4-wave plague of locusts, the palmer worm, the locust, the canker worm, and the caterpillar, destroyed the agricultural industry completely, which also destroyed all food product. It brought famine, brought pestilence. It killed off the cattle, and it made a once prosperous nation completely scuttled. Their economy was completely scuttled through these four different waves of judgment. Then we learned a second 4-wave of judgment, 4 different invasions by the Assyrians. We named those kings in that teaching. But this had to do with the contemporary time of Joel. Joel didn't live through all of this. If you add it up, it went from 830 to about 650 BC, where these 4, not only the agricultural destruction, which initially happened, which they never really got back on their feet, it was about 150 years or 160 years of war and famine and pestilence because of all the time. And then literally 60 years after the Assyrians stopped, the Babylonians came in and took them all captive. So not good. But here's what happened. That all ended in verse 14. In verse 15, we jump forward to the day of the Lord. And in a way, I think the Holy Spirit, Joel, is telling us that if you think that's bad, if you think it's bad, these 4 agricultural, crises that happened and livestock that happened, understand something. There's a time coming on Jerusalem and Israel that's going to be far worse. It's going to be terrible, And so he gets into it in verse 15. He says the day of the Lord, is at hand. In other words, the day of the Lord is coming. Now, what is the day of the Lord? Because he says it 5 times. This is the first time in his book. The day of the Lord is the actual day that Jesus comes back. It's the actual day that he lands on the earth. So it's a specific day. But there's also a season before it that's well drawn out in Scripture called Great Tribulation. And so what Joel here is describing is Great Tribulation, what it's going to be like during that time. But first of all, what happens on the day of the Lord? So when Jesus comes back, he does a couple of things. He brings the family on earth and the family in heaven together. So that's the rapture resurrection of the church. He does that before he actually comes into the earth. We all meet in the clouds and we all come back together. The second thing he does is he destroys Antichrist and the false prophet. This is found in different places, but it's really laid out in Revelations 19. The Battle of Armageddon, where he destroys all the Gentile armies of the earth. He destroys them. He removes them. He removes everyone who took the mark of the beast or worshiped the name of Antichrist or worshiped Antichrist from the earth. He removes them from the earth. He torches and burns up the earth. He removes all evidence of humanity. And when we go into the millennial reign of Christ, we all will, and there'll be nothing left here. You won't be able to say, well, I owned that building, or I was president of the United States and I lived in the White House. All of that's going to be gone. We're starting fresh, clean slate. Jesus as king, and everything from that point forward is done with him and us on the earth. Excuse me. He separates and eliminates those that assisted us and helped us in tribulation, those that loved us, helped us through. They didn't take the mark of the beast. They didn't believe in Jesus. They happened to live through it. So this is the separation of sheep and goats. So these are all people that lived through it. He's on the throne. If you read it in Matthew 25, he's on the throne. He's already returned. He's already here. He's eradicated everybody that took the mark. So the people that are left, the people that will multiply and fill the earth again, as Revelations 20 tells us, they will be broken up into two groups. One group will be eradicated from the earth because they didn't help us. They didn't visit us. They didn't hide us. This is sort of like Rahab the harlot. She got to go in to the promised land with the children of Israel because she sheltered them, hid them under the threat of death. So the sheep there are those that loved us, helped us, fed us, clothed us, sheltered us, and they will go in with us into the millennial reign with Jesus. So Satan and the fallen angels will be locked up for 1,000 years. So all of that occurs on the day of the Lord, and the day I have a teaching called the day of the Lord and the day after, because all of this happens very quickly, and then Jesus establishes his reign on earth. The earth burns up, but I believe that God will restore it very quickly with vegetation, and we'll rebuild the earth in perfect conditions. We won't have Satan fighting us. The environment and the curse on the earth will be gone. The lion will lay with the lamb, and the child will play with the cobra. There'll be no vicious animals or carnivorous animals on earth anymore. And so the earth will become a different place. Now, verse 15 to 20, what we read today, really describes what happens before the day of the Lord. So if we go back to verse 15, it says, alas, for the day of the Lord is at hand. In other words, it's coming. We see this through the other chapters of Joel. In fact, chapter 2, verse 1 says, let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It's always a future thing. So in this particular case, what Joel is describing is agricultural issues, livestock issues, vegetation, and fresh water are in severe stress. And we'll look at why that is, because we want to look at the book of Revelations and try to understand what's going on here. Because pestilence, famine, and upheaval in nature are three of God's four judgments, right? It doesn't talk about war here. It will, but in the later chapters. But here it's talking about upheaval in nature, right? We see that the brooks are dried up. We see that there's famine in the land, that the storehouses are shambled, the barns are broken down, the animals groan. So he's really talking about the upheaval and all of the pre-tribulation and great tribulation events that happen on the earth. It says, so the day of the Lord is at hand. It'll come as a destruction from the Almighty. And what does that mean? And we tend to focus a lot of attention on Antichrist and what he's going to do on the earth, how he's going to make war against the saints, how he's going to try and eradicate and eliminate Christianity. He's going to martyr Christians. But at the same time, in parallel, Jesus is bringing judgments on the earth by opening 7 seals, blowing 7 trumpets, and pouring out 7 bowls. And so Jesus is doing that. Antichrist isn't doing it. And, why is he doing it? He's doing it as a sign to the earth to try and get people to turn to him. And, you say, well, how does that work? Well, we'll be here on the earth, and we'll actually have God's playbook telling us what's coming next. Because the seals are sequential, the trumpets are sequential, and the bowls are sequential. So those on earth will say, "This, you think this is bad? Here's what's happening next." This occurred with Moses. Moses went through 9 plagues, and so he knew what was happening. He told the people, the covenant people, God's people, what was going to happen. They, in most cases, were protected from what was happening. You would see the cattle of the Egyptians killed, but the cattle of the Jews would live. You would see that there'd be no light and severe darkness in the homes of the Egyptians, but in the homes of the Jews and the covenant people, they had light. So I in my notes, if you're getting our notes, I bring to the surface my teachings of the book of Revelation. I brought in some of chapter 6, some of chapter 8. Chapter 6 is the seals. Chapter 8 are the trumpets, and chapter 16 are the bowls. And I just pulled out and cut and paste into the notes so you can read those. And it's interesting because I also brought in the protections during the time of Moses. You could see a parallel. You could see that certain things happen that happen in the end times, but also happen as one of the plagues of Egypt. And they were the same event, right? The same effect on the earth. But the people of Goshen, the people, God's covenant people, didn't participate in those particular plagues on the earth. So again, if I read through this, it says, "Is not the food cut off before your eyes?" In other words, there's no food. Joy and gladness from the house of our God. And, everybody is, in agony through this. The seed shrivels under the clod. The storehouse, which is, storing this year's crop so that we can live for the next year's, are in shambles. The barns are broken down. The barns are where the animals would live, where, new calves and new lambs would be born. They're broken down. The grains are withered. There's no bread. There's no food. The animals groan from what? Hunger. And the herds of cattle, they're restless because there's no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep suffer under punishment. It says, "O Lord, I cry out, for fire has devoured the open pastures." And you'll see that some of the seals and trumpets and bowls destroy vegetation. The beasts of the field also cry to you. The water and brooks, and again, it's another seal and trumpet that dry up the fresh water, and the fire has devoured the pastures. Let's look at Revelation 6 and just get an idea, a sense of what's going on. Now, Revelation 6, let's explain the book of Revelations a little bit, just to try and get a handle on what's going on. All of Revelation chapter 1 is sort of an intro chapter. 2 and 3 are the 7 churches, or the 7 letters to the 7 churches in Asia Minor. Chapter 4 and 5. Chapter 4 has to do with God the Father in heaven. We see a glimpse of heaven. Chapter 5 is all about Jesus, why he's worthy to open the seals and worthy to bring judgment on the earth. Chapter 6 through the end of the book really talks about what's going to happen in the end times. So chapter 6 through the end of the book are built upon the foundation of chapter 4, how God is holy and without reproach, and chapter 5, where Jesus is worthy, right? So chapter 6 and verse 1, it says, I saw when the Lamb, that's Jesus, opened one of the seals. Notice who opened the seal. Jesus. I heard one of the four living creatures say with a voice like thunder, come and see. Again, I can't teach the whole thing again, but there are four angels, seraphim angels around the throne of God who are narrators through this process, is the best way to put it. It said, I look and behold a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him. This is Antichrist. So Jesus actually releases Antichrist. We're not positive how this correlates to the 7-year period. I believe it begins the 7-year period. He sat on a horse and a bow, but he had no arrows, so he came in peace. He had a crown, so he was given a crown by Jesus for a time period. And he went out to conquer and to conquer. And so conquering to conquer, originally we see him coming in flattery. We see that in Daniel chapter 11. So he comes in peace initially. So when Jesus opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, come and see. Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to him who sat on it to take peace from the earth. So it's not peace from a region, it's a world war. And people shall kill one another. There was given to him a great sword. So this, I think, begins great tribulation. Others, and I could be wrong, because, again, I believe all of this happens in that 7-year period, but this war could take place in that first 3 years. There could be world war, and he still comes in peace. So the war world war is the second seal. He opened the third seal, and I saw a third living creature say, come and see. So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales. Now, a pair of scales is something that you weigh something. So you put grain on one side, and you put weights to measure the grain on the other side. So this has to do with commerce. I heard the voice in the midst of the four living creatures say, a quart of wheat for a denarius. In other words, a quart of wheat for a whole day's wages. So a loaf of bread or two for a whole day's wages, and a quart of barley for a denarius. Do not harm the oil and the wine. So what he's saying here is that there's going to be severe famine with severe inflation on food. It's going to take a man will work a whole day just to get a loaf of bread. Terrible time. Verse 7, he opened the fourth seal, and I heard a voice of the four living creatures say, come and see. So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed him. Power was given over him for a fourth of the earth to kill now these are the four sore judgments of God. These are the four severe judgments of God. Power was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, that's war, hunger, that's famine, death, that's pestilence, and beasts of the field, or the earth, that's upheaval in nature. So a quarter of the earth will die in the fourth seal. And it'll be with famine, with pestilence, with wars, and with beasts of the field. These are just the continual buffeting that's on the earth before Jesus returns. And notice, Jesus is allowing this. He's allowing this to happen. Now, I believe there's special protections. If we go over to chapter 8, let me just scroll down in my notes here. So in chapter 8, you'll see in your notes that the first trumpet brings hail mingled with blood, which did happen in Exodus chapter 9. And what did it do? It destroyed the third of the vegetation on earth. Okay, but the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel lived, there was no hail. So, and again, the second angel sounded a trumpet, and it brought, let me scroll up, it brought a mountain of fire burning that was thrown into the sea. This is probably some sort of meteorite that kills a third of the sea life. And again, this in Exodus chapter 7, behold, he said, strike the waters with a rod. It'll turn to blood, and all of the fish will die in the river. That's Moses. So again, the people of God prepared for it before. So he's going to go through a series of these in chapter 8, and you can see them in your notes. Again, the third one, the spring waters, the fresh waters turned rotten. They were contaminated. The fourth angel brought darkness on the earth. And again, there's parallels between the time of Moses and this time. And so when you go over to chapter 16 with the bowls, you'll see that that when they pour these out, it's the same thing. Chapter 16, verse 2, the first bowl was poured out on the earth, and loathsome sores came on men, boils, right? That happened to the Egyptians. Second, poured out, and the sea became blood again. And third, poured out his bowl in the fresh water, again, dried up. So when we go back to Joel and we start reading, is not the food cut off? Joy and gladness from the house of our God. The sea shrivel under the clods. The storehouses are in shambles. The barns are broken down. The grains are withered. How the animals groan. The herds of cattle are restless because there's no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep suffer punishment. Fire devours the open pastures. Fire devours the trees. Joel is describing what we're looking at in Great Tribulation. So he's saying that the day of the Lord's at hand, but before that, I just prophesied, Joel speaking, I just prophesied about an agricultural crisis that's going to decimate our nation and cause us to go into financial bankruptcy. Our agricultural business, our herds will be gone, will begin to grow, and then the Assyrians will attack in 4 waves over a century. And every time they come in, they'll plunder and destroy us and weaken us greatly, and we'll try and build back, and they'll come again in 4 waves. He's saying this is going to be far worse than that. This is going to be terrible. And as you can see, when we read just through the little bit of Revelations, hopefully you get our notes. They're on our website on the front page, and you should become a member, a free member. Just that gives us your email address and connects you with us for emails, right? Right now we email out the notes. We're going to just have them on the website from now on. But, what Joel's doing here is he's describing those days before the great and terrible day of the Lord. So when I study the rest of Joel, each time the day of the Lord is laid out, I'm going to integrate something that correlates with it in Scripture. It's only a 3-chapter book, but we're making our way through. So that's our message for today. Please, when you get the notes, read through Revelations 6, 8, and 16 to see those events that are going to happen on the earth. A couple of things. We're a completely remote ministry. In other words, I'm in a room right now at the library. I'm doing this blog, and there's no one with me. And so, I do this ministry. God has called me to this ministry to be a remote ministry, right? To teach. I supplement what you learn in church. And so by you watching us, you're allowing us to join you on your journey to know God and His Word. We bring to the surface wisdom and revelation, knowledge and understanding out of God's Word. So we're remote. So we grow by you growing us. We grow by your efforts to share our message, to get others integrated into our message. We now have a phone app. If you go to the Apple App Store or Google App Store, which is play.google, if you go to those, you can download our free app, which has all of our teachings on it. It has all of our blogs, everything, even the censored stuff. It's all on the phone app, and it's free. It's easy to use. You can watch this on your phone app. You can also get the notes for this on your phone app. So whether it's our website or our phone app, please have others join us. Share it. If you have Facebook, share it, and help us grow our ministry. The other thing is, we survive by donations. I mean, we're here because of our partners. Those giving us $10, $20, $50 a month, $100, whatever it may be, we're here because of them. They're supporting us. We do not charge for any of our materials. All of our curriculum, workbooks, DVDs, you can order those for free. All you have to do is pay for shipping. You can download them for free. We do not merchandise anything here. Everything is free. I believe that the Lord freely gave it to me. I freely give it, but we have to survive. And so we need you to survive. We need you to give us something. You know, $25 a month or $50 a month will help us tremendously in mass, right? If people give that. And then lastly, you know, I think that when I look at our ministry, we are a forerunner ministry. We are teaching in and through the times ahead. If this is the only program that you watch, you know, we have 17 video presentations a week. So one, you know, 6 of them are 1 minute, 1 verse on Instagram. At Sebastian Lucido, 1 minute, 1 verse. But I teach 6 5-minute devotions every morning. The 5-minute teaching. It's on Spotify and iTunes. It's also on our website. It's in our phone app. It's on Facebook, and it's on YouTube. I teach a general Bible study every Tuesday evening. And I teach End Times every Saturday morning. I teach a blog called What I Really Think every Friday, and I teach a non-censored blog. In other words, it's a headline and prophecy, we call it, but I try not to cross the censorship where we get taken down or censored. So those all are occurring, and those are all on our phone app and all on our website. You know, so I thank you for allowing us to join you on your journey to know God. If you have questions, email me at contact@watchersoftruth. If you need prayer, email me at watchersoftruth. And then pray about joining us as a partner and allowing us to continue to teach you and walk with you in your journey to know God and His Word. God bless you. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next Thursday for another episode of Line Upon Line. God bless you guys. Have a great day.